Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people that want the best info, but just don't have the time. Get your podcast fix with the Cliff Notes versions of your favorite podcasts. No fluff, just the actionable golden nuggets. Having this much knowledge at your fingertips should be downright illegal. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with Satori Prime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Performance Enhancing Podcast. I'm Ilan Ferdman, and I'm here with a super special guest. I'm really excited because what you're about to hear is probably going to be one of the most incredible stories on a lot of different levels. So I don't want to let the cat out of the bag here, but Chad Juros, first of all, welcome, and thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here.
No, thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. So just a real quick intro on Chad, and I'm going to not say so much because the story and how it unfolds literally will probably make you laugh, cry, be inspired, want to take action, and a whole slew of other things in between. So I'm going to let him share it. But what you want to know about Chad is that, A, he's a very young entrepreneur. He's someone that through practicing magic and having one of the most incredible, powerful stories on what he wants to share with the world, has been to the White House twice now to perform. Correct, Chad?
Actually, 3 times.
3 times. Okay. Even better. And has gotten to be in front of some of the most amazing people, all out of what we call who he's being, more than what he's doing. And obviously he's wrapped it around an incredible, you know what, before I let anything out of the bag, other things you need to know about him. He is the founder of Captivatum, which is a production company and entertainment company. And then the other thing is he is the founder of Spread the Magic, which is something we're going to be talking a lot about today as well. So Chad, again, welcome. Truly thank you for being here with us. And why don't you kind of start sharing your story, because I remember when you shared it with me over the phone, I was literally in tears just hearing it. So
Thanks.
Take it away, and then I'll interject with some few questions here and there, but I think this is something that people really need to hear.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, every magician kind of has, their own little story of how they first learned their first magic trick. So mine started off a little bit different than most stories that I've heard. Most magicians said, oh, they got a magic kit for Christmas or for Hanukkah or for the holidays, and they just started falling in love with it. Well, it all started with me when I was about 3. I was very sick in the hospital. I was diagnosed with leukemia, type ALL, but I was 3 years old. I didn't know anything about cancer, so I was just a 3-year-old kid. All I remember was just sitting in my hospital room, and my dad wanted to find something to get my mind focused away from all the negative. So when my dad was a little boy, he practiced magic as a hobby. He was a dentist. He just was good with his hands. He dabbled in the talent or in the hobby. And he came up to the hospital every once in a while, and he showed me magic as a way of just making me smile and getting my mind focused away from all the horror that was going on in my hospital room. Then I started to go into remission. I started to live a normal childhood. I got to go home. I got to hang out with my friends. I got to go to school. And then unfortunately, when I got a little bit older, at the age of 7, I was in 1st grade. My cancer came back. But this time it was a lot worse. The doctors told us that I kind of went from an 80% chance of survival to under a 5.
Wow.
And I remember when I was in the doctor's office at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and the doctor was telling us this. And my dad squeezed me so tight that I thought he was going to squeeze the cancer right out of me. I was a young boy. Of course, I didn't know any better. He just squeezed me so tight. He was so worried for me. And him and I were best buddies. And now that I was going to have to live at the hospital again, but this time for a much longer period of time than the first time around.
You don't remember the first time, right? Like
I said, I remember little things. I remember sitting at the hospital bed, watching movies, having my dad perform little tricks for me here or there. But aside, like, from all the horror that was going on around, I don't remember too much, which is a good thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
I bet.
yeah, thank goodness I don't remember all that stuff.
And when did you go home the first time? You were 3 when you first.
Yeah, when I was 3, I was an inpatient for a while, and I got my treatments. But I didn't have to live at Children's for as long as the second time around. So what happened the second time around was I had to live at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia for over 17 months straight. Normally, for my symptoms, I would have a bone marrow transplant. And I have an older sister. She's 2 years younger than me. Her name's Faith. I'm sorry, she's 2 years older than me. Her name's Faith. And normally they pick your sibling for the match. But unfortunately, my sister wasn't a match. So they had to do an experimental protocol that they only tried on about 4 other patients before me. And unfortunately, those patients didn't make it. So I was their 5th guinea pig. They were just throwing high doses of chemotherapy and radiation, anything that would stick. And
I have a question for you. During that time, because I'm a parent, and I'm like, when I heard the story, I was just like, my brain couldn't even process what your parents must have gone through.
Yeah.
Were you involved in any of the decision making about putting you into this kind of experimental program, or were they just like, listen, we don't really have any other options?
There were no other options. Yeah.
Wow.
So my mom is like the strongest person in the world to go through this. And you'll learn even more about my story later on to hear how really she's like the super mom, that she was able to get through all this craziness that was going on in her life. So my dad, of course, had his dental practice. So he was home mostly during the week. But on Tuesday nights, he closed his dental practice. He came up to the hospital. And then now that I was 7 years old, much older than the first time around, he said, why not I teach you magic? So that was something that him and I really had a connection, and we shared, because I couldn't go out and play catch with my dad. I couldn't go, do the normal father-son type of thing. So every Tuesday night, my room became like a magic haven. He brought in all the magic tricks. He might have stopped at the local magic shop and brought a new trick in. And we watched magic videos, went back when it was VHSs. And we just learned magic. And that's what got my mind focused away from all the negative that was going on in my hospital room this time around. And once he left, I just kept practicing my magic. I performed for my nurses and the doctors. The doctors dubbed my name the magical Chad Juros. That was my magic name. And it also became my magic word when I was a young magician. I was, always said the magic word Chad Juros, and hopefully the magic worked out. But it really did keep my mind off of all the craziness, because when I grew up and I realized how severe my disease was and how I was basically pronounced dead twice during this time, I really don't remember too much of it. And it's a great thing that I don't remember too much of it. All I remember is the good. I remember my family coming in and, watching me do tricks and performing for my dad and him performing for me, watching these videos with my dad to learn the new tricks. Every once in a while I took a break from the magic, and I also loved watching movies with my dad. So like I'm a big movie buff now. And magically, the doctors have no idea how it happened. I started to get better. The doctors really, they were calling in my family, saying their last goodbyes. I was not supposed to live. I went into cardiac arrest several times, had breathing machines, feeding tubes during this 7-month period. It was not looking good. And then magically, one night, boom, I started getting better. And the doctors say that's probably my best magic trick of all, because they don't know how it happened, but it happened.
Wow.
Somebody wants me here for a reason. So,
well, I think the purpose is going to be very clear in a few minutes.
Yeah, thank you. So I got to go home on an outpatient basis. I had my fluids hooked to me by a backpack. and that I had to go back to the hospital, every, week or so, to get all my treatments and, to make sure everything was still going good. And I started getting healthier. My hair started coming back because I did lose my hair a few times with all the chemotherapy treatments and the radiation. I started performing as much as I could, whether it's at a family event or a block party or a local library. I just wanted to get my name out there as being a magician. And then quickly my story kind of got into the papers that this, miracle child, magician, started,
the puns wrote themselves.
Yeah, that's right. They work very well together.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was very, very lucky that I was able to get through all that horror, and this amazing thing happened that I was able to become into remission. They say if you're 5 years off of chemotherapy, you're considered cured. If you don't have any symptoms or anything, relapses coming back, you're considered cured. During this time, we started living a normal family life. We started going on family vacations. I started hanging out with my dad outside, playing catch, playing golf, doing a normal father-son stuff.
And were you back in school at this point?
I had to actually redo first grade again. So I went back to first grade, and I was back in school. I was trying to be as normal as a child as I could be. And then my dad was acting weird. My sister started noticing it. She was 2 years older than me, so she started just noticing little things whenever my mom and I had to go to the hospital for a checkup or something. She always said, Dad's acting weird again. He might have sometimes he only shaved like the left side of his face. He got lost coming home from work, which was only about a mile from our house, and he goes there, every day. He was a very healthy person. He was very athletic. He was like a local tennis champ. He played tennis like at least once or twice a week. And then out of nowhere, he came home one night and he collapsed at the front door. My mom immediately rushed him to the hospital, especially with everything what happened to me. She, wasn't taking any chances. So she rushed him to the hospital. She demanded an MRI. The doctor said it wasn't necessary. This is all stress from your son being sick. He's fine. Nothing to be worried about. And
how old are you at this point, Chad?
What's that?
How old are you at this point?
Probably around this point, I was about 9 or 10.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was scary for our whole family. We didn't know what was going on. But again, my mom demanded the MRI, and the doctor finally gave in and said, sure, we'll give you the MRI, but this is not necessary. You have to tell your wife to calm down. And my dad said, if my wife tells you to do something, you do it. So he went into an MRI, and then it was about a half hour after they left. My mom got a ring on her beeper, back when they were using beepers, from the doctor. They pulled over, they called the doctor. And it was that night that my dad was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor. And he actually had it for 7 years without us even realizing it. We just thought all the symptoms, again, were stress from me being sick. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But we remained positive. We always said that, if Chad could survive, so can Dad. That was our little saying. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. It was only about 11 months later that my dad passed away at the age of 41. And before he passed away, he had a couple of dying wishes for me. And the main one was for me to continue to spread my magic in the hopes that everyone can find the magic in their life as I did mine. So I took his words, spread the magic, and it was in 2000. So my dad passed away in 2000, and it takes a while to start up a foundation. But by 2003, we started the Spread the Magic Foundation, which is a nonprofit that helps raise money for pediatric cancer in the hopes that everyone can find the magic in their life. And their magic could be anything, whether it's video games, sports, music, dancing. The one thing that keeps their mind focused on the positive is their magic. And for me, it just happened to be magic tricks, so it worked out very well. We started, in the beginning, we did a couple of tennis tournaments to raise money for the Spread the Magic Foundation because my dad was an avid tennis player. Then we started doing magic shows at local high schools and colleges, and all the money that was raised from the ticket sales went to Spread the Magic. And then we really started doing bigger shows where I was calling people that I knew from like Las Vegas, magicians, big names, who came out and did benefit magic shows. And we raised like $22,000 at one magic show. So things were looking really great for the foundation. And then it was about 2003. It was May of 2003. I started getting really bad migraines. I was a freshman in high school. I can tolerate pain pretty well, but I was having these horrible migraines that I just couldn't handle. I immediately told my mom, I said, I think something's wrong. It was hard for me to close my eyes. It hurt. It was called isolated eye pain. My oncologist said that, isolated eye pain is not a sign of a relapse. You have nothing to worry about there. But if Chad is complaining, we should get this figured out. So I was rushed to the hospital, and we had an MRI, and we found out that, thank goodness, it wasn't cancer, but it had to be fixed. And I was actually bleeding from the brain as a result of the chemotherapy and radiation. And this was my 5 years off of chemo. This is when I was supposed to be considered cured. And then, boom, this happens. And all this happened, like everything, either my diagnosis of leukemia, my dad getting sick, the brain surgery, all this happened either on my mom's birthday or on Mother's Day.
Oh, my God.
So my mom hates those days that should be wonderful for her. She is terrified of those days. So it was Mother's Day of 2003. I was rushed into emergency brain surgery. The doctor said that this had to be fixed, and if it wasn't going to be fixed, I would probably not be able to do my magic again. And it's the one thing I left from my dad that, they said, this has to be fixed. And the scary thing is, even with the surgery, you probably won't be able to do your magic again either, because we have to touch this vein to get to this vein that was bleeding in my brain. So it was very scary. I thought I was not going to be able to do my magic again.
So what happens in your mind at that moment? Because at this point, I mean, when you were young, right, when you were like 7, your parents had to put you into this crazy, like 5th guinea pig procedure. It wasn't really up to you.
It was up to me. I mean, it was either I do it or, I deal with these migraines, and it could get worse.
So there's no option for you. It wasn't like when they told you no more magic.
Yep.
You just said, listen, obviously, choice between living and magic, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Okay. So I had to do it. And I went into surgery, and right before I went into surgery, I did my magic show for one of the playrooms at the Children's Hospital with all the markings on my head, like ready to go into surgery. Because I thought it was going to be my last time. And we even stopped the show a little bit early because my mom and the doctors noticed that I wasn't being myself. So we stopped the show. They put me on a gurney. They pushed me into the operating room, and the doctor said, say the magic word, Chadakazam, and hopefully everything would be okay. Then it was about 4 hours later. The doctors came out. They said, it was successful. We did what we needed to do, but we did hit the vein. So until Chad wakes up, we don't know what's going to happen. So I just remember waking up, and the first thing I did was I reached for a deck of cards, and I shuffled them, and I fanned them, and I had all my moves and what magicians called flourishes down. And I was just thrilled that I was able to still do my magic. But I still had to have some rehab and stuff like that, physical therapy, because I had to get my motor functions kind of up and running again, being that they were playing around inside my head. And a reason why I was able to recover so quickly was because I had the ability to juggle. And juggling really helps with your motor skills and your hand-eye coordination and your balance. So the doctors really feel that because I was able to juggle, this was a way for me to recover a lot faster, which I thought was incredible. I wasn't aware of that until the doctors told me this, and it was really cool to hear that. I got to go home. I started recovering. I started practicing my magic again. I started getting emails from famous magicians all over the world that they've heard my story. They heard about my surgery and that it was a success. We heard from magicians like Penn and Teller, David Copperfield, Lance Burton, Matt King. These are all like Vegas headliners.
Yeah.
And then we also heard from Richard Petty from the NASCAR world, because he is part of a Paul Newman hole-in-the-wall gang camp, which is a camp for kids with life-threatening diseases. And his camp is called Victory Junction Camp. It's all about NASCAR, and it's themed with NASCAR stuff. So I actually got to go perform for the NASCAR world and for Richard Petty and for the camp. And I got to visit a few other Paul Newman camps, which were really neat. They quickly found out I wasn't just a kid with a story. I knew what I was doing, which felt great because I didn't want just my story to open doors for me. And I love what I do, and I respect it, and I take it very seriously. And then we also received a call from the White House, which kind of freaks you out when you see that on your caller ID. It's in the White House.
You should take a snapshot of that thing.
And we answer, and it's the First Lady at the time, Laura Bush. And Laura Bush asked me to perform at the Easter egg roll at the White House. She made a speech about me on Capitol Hill for a childhood cancer. It was like a festival that they were having in Washington, D.C. And she told, out of all the hundreds and thousands of stories that there are out there, she shared my story with everyone, which was an honor, a huge honor. And then it was right at that speech that she invited me face-to-face to perform at the White House. And I got invited back 2 more times after the first, which was super cool.
You probably did a good job the first time.
I tried. Actually, it poured because it was outside. It poured. But
how nervous are you when you show up to the White House to do magic?
It was incredible. I'm only nervous when I'm in front of magicians. So I wouldn't say I was nervous. It was just an amazing experience. But the worst is when you're performing for a magician because they're watching every move you make. So you can't hide from a magician.
With a normal person, like if you perform magic in front of me, knowing that I'm not going to pick up on the intricacies of how you're doing certain things, you're like, whatever. But with those guys, it kind of gets a little more hairy.
Yeah, I don't know. I was very comfortable. I had my show. I had my equipment. I was in my comfort zone. But of course, it's a little nerve-wracking. I'm not going to lie. But it was amazing. But every time that I was there, it was an outdoor performance, and it poured. All 3 times it poured. So all my equipment got poured on, but you got to suck it up, and you're like, I'm at the White House, man. Yeah, you just got to go with the flow, and that's what I did. But it was freezing because it was pouring. It was April, or it might have been actually March when I did. March or April. I forgot exactly when it was, but probably April because it was the Easter egg roll.
Yeah.
But my hands were freezing. But I just remember that the Secret Service guys were running to get hand warmers for me and making sure everything ran smooth, even though everything was wet and getting poured on. But it was an amazing experience, and I'll never forget it.
I have a quick question before we go on.
Sure.
So I'm actually just in the middle of reading a book. I think I told you about it, The Rise of Superman by Stephen Summer.
Yep, you told me about it.
Yeah, and yesterday I was listening to a part, and he was talking about flow, which some of our listeners have already spoken a little bit about, and I'm actually going to have him on Monday. I'm interviewing him, so I'm psyched about that. But one of the things that is fascinating is the children growing up, right? Because he talks a lot about extreme sport athletes and like what we believe is possible has really shifted because this kind of generation that's built that whole sport. Now these kids are growing up watching these guys do incredible feats. And as a kid, they're seeing it and going like, oh yeah, I can do that. Or like, that's what I'm going to go out and try. It's in the realm of possibility. So like their imagination is now going a completely different place. But what he shared that was amazing. And I just want to see if this is true for you.
Yeah. Well,
one of the kids said, he goes, I know that I just need to stop thinking and I need to let my body does what it's going to do because my body knows to do things better than my brain does. So when you're doing magic and it's like cold and uncomfortable or whatever it might be, do you find that you've just like let go and you just let your body do what it knows to do at this point?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. A lot of magic is muscle memory. You put the whether it's a deck of cards or whatever it is in your hands, and you're just able to kind of futz around with it and make a trick out of it or an illusion or whatever it may be. So yeah, I'm one of those type of people that I always need something in my hand. I'm always playing with a deck of cards or a pen. Or my girlfriend's always yelling at me, you always got to play with something. And unfortunately I do. But
part of the job.
Yeah, I'm always looking around the room, trying to figure out how I can do a trick with this, how I can do a trick with that. But yeah, you're right. It's part of the job. And when you live and breathe it, it's what you love to do.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So then from the White House, but what you were saying though, real quick before I continue, when I was younger, I didn't know I was going to be a magician. It was just something I loved. And it kind of just turned into this. I was like, oh my God, I was like, maybe I can make a career being a magician. It's a very difficult career. It's like being an actor. You're always chasing after your next show. But I mean, to be able to make people happy and doing what you love, for a job, it's the most amazing feeling in the world. It's not a job. It's great.
You took the words out of my mouth. I mean, we built Satori Prime with my brother on that exact concept.
Yeah.
On the exact concept that we want to break down what people believe is possible in their world. And I think for most people, we've been so culturally and sociologically brainwashed into believing that the hobbies and the things that you're super passionate about and you love, well, you can't do that and have any real sort of success with it. Like you have to get some stupid desk job or what our parents say, like real jobs. And I think we spoke about it on the phone, but like with today's technology and today's ability to market yourself and put yourself out there. I mean, look, your story gets shared in newspapers, and next thing you know, Laura Bush is sharing your story and then inviting you to the White House.
Yeah. And
that happens because you follow your dream and passion in life. Like, that's why when I heard the story, I was like, it's one of the best stories I've ever heard of someone put on this earth to do something so uniquely specific. Like, every piece that you talk about in your story, all I see is the universe or God or whatever the heck people want to call it, literally leading you moment by moment to where you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
In the most like insane, crazy, painful ways at times, but like the fact that you've been able to look at your world the way you have, and your parents must have done one of the most amazing jobs. I'm sure your sister is an incredible person as well, because for your family to stay as positive as they did with everything they went through so that you can still end up being this person you are today. I mean, I would love to just shake all their hands, give them a hug, because they've blessed this world with some amazing human being.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Incredible.
Thank you. But yeah, so now I forgot where I was.
We're at the White House.
Yeah, I know. We're at the White House.
All right. So we'll wrap up part one of this interview with Chad Juros there. at the White House. And we'll continue with what actually took place at the White House and then go into how Chad has helped build his business and what he's used to build his business via connections, offline marketing, online marketing, etc. So hopefully you enjoyed part 1 of the interview with Chad Juros, and make sure to check out part 2 right now to continue listening to the interview.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to satoriprime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.